I'm Lauren Kashan from Sharptooth, and you're watching HeartSupport. Well, I guess technically the earliest thing that happened to me as far as like trauma stuff was I'm adopted, which like regardless of how positive an experience that is for somebody, like there is trauma that occurs like within the body when a person is physically removed from their biological parent. There's hormones that basically don't get expressed, that aren't released when mother-child bonding experiences are happening, and people who are adopted sometimes miss out on some of those things, which can affect development. So I guess that was strike one in a way. And who knows that that's going to affect them. Like nobody, especially like I have a great family, like I was raised in an amazing house, like you never really anticipate things like that having any kind of profound effect on you, especially if you've known your whole life. I think that there were probably a lot of abandonment issues that didn't get dealt with, and issues of just being a teenage girl that also weren't getting dealt with. Like I was sexually assaulted a few times, like just in high school, and I think I took to self-medicating as a way to kind of cope with that, with mostly alcohol, but also like cocaine, which, not a super normal thing for a 17-year-old to be doing. So like the last year that I was in high school, I got expelled for drug possession. I was raped 3 times. The night before my 18th birthday, I was raped by my drug dealer. And I woke up on my 18th birthday and I was like, well, clearly I'm not good at dying because I should have been fucking dead at this point. So if I'm gonna have to go through like the rest of my life, I need to do something. So I quit everything at that point. Was very desperate for any kind of help that I could get, and there was a therapist in Baltimore that was referring people down to a treatment center in Florida. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do literally anything that you tell me. I just don't want to feel this way anymore. And the place that I ended up getting referred to ended up actually legitimately being a cult. It's been cited on, I think, 16 counts by the Board of Psychiatry in Florida for malpractice. They did a lot of really, really fucked up things to their clients. They would have group therapy sessions with teenage girls, some who were way younger than me, like 13-year-old teenage girls were rape victims in the same room as rapists and like sexual predators, and make us get up in front of people and talk about what happened in an extremely unsafe and caring environment. You were made to believe that everything that had happened to you up until that point was your fault, or the fault of your friends and family who they cut you off from completely. There were people who've been down there for 20 years. You feel like everything you've done up until this point, everything that's happened to you is your fault. And they tell you if you leave, you're gonna relapse and die. It's like, what are you supposed to do? You're at the most vulnerable, lowest point of your existence, and these people are telling you that they are the only thing that can help you. So it's like, you grab onto that. I had a friend who tried to kill herself there. I have friends who left and killed themselves. I feel like this can't be it. This can't be it. I'm 19 years old. What am I going to do? Live here? This place with no exit plan? This isn't a normal place. And the place I was working, I did have access to the internet, but like you're paranoid as shit. People monitor everything you do. I guess I got a wild hair one day, and I Googled just the name of the place. It was called Choices Counseling Center, and I Googled it, and first thing that came up was a forum. It was a cult recovery forum, and it was for people who had left. And I'm like, I'm not fucking crazy. I need to get the fuck out of here. They also tell you that you have a bunch of mental illnesses that you don't have, so they can give you medications that you don't need, so that you sit down and you shut up and you keep giving them money to be there. So I stopped taking all of the medications that I was on, which and at the time that ended up helping astronomically with my mental health. I'm definitely an advocate for medications when they are helpful, but I'm not an advocate for them when they are fucking not. And at this point in my life, they were not. So, and then I basically just started showing up at the facility every day and sitting there in the lobby and saying, I want you to call my parents and I want to go home. Every day they would say, that's nice, you're not going anywhere. go sit in group therapy. And I'd say, no, I'm not leaving this seat until you call my parents and until you let me go home. And I did that every single day for about a month. The thing that changed was that we got a bunch of new people in all at once. They did like weekend programs where they'd basically induct new people. So we got about like 4 or 5 new, like young kids. And I was like, okay, here's the deal. Either you let me call my parents and get the fuck out of here, or I'm gonna run away and I'm gonna convince all these other new kids to run away because they don't wanna fucking be here. They just got here and they're all fresh off the streets, like fresh off using. They don't give a fuck. Their parents sent them here. I was like, I know you have no problem throwing me in the psych ward, but do you wanna throw 5 other people in there too? They realized I was more trouble than I was worth, so they were like, we'll call your parents. And within 24 hours, they had the intern drop me off at the Orlando airport with just my shit, and I'd never flown before or anything, and like a plane ticket back to Baltimore. And I didn't talk about it for a long time because I didn't think that anyone would believe me, because who the fuck believes that, you know? So eventually, like, it started coming out, like, with my parents, that things there were not as they seemed. It wasn't until I started playing music in bands, like I started feeling like I could open up about that a little bit more. And I wrote a song about like my experience of being down there. I didn't tell anybody what the song was about. I was just like, yo, wrote this song. It was the first hardcore song I ever wrote, and it was called There's Something in the Water. At the time, my bandmates in that band eventually started being like, the fuck is this song about? And that's when I started feeling a lot more safe about talking about it. Because also, when you get home, you're like, you think no one's gonna believe you, and then you also have this paranoia that anything you say or do could result in you having to go back. Once I started writing about it, I don't know, I guess that's where like some of like the healing started like happening. But that's also how like I, you know, got into heavy music, was I got home and I had all these feelings like inside it, and I'm walking around feeling like I'm insane and there's something wrong with me, and I have all this anger and I have no outlet. A friend of mine took me to an Every Time I Die show. It was like all of the screaming in my head just stopped because there's all this screaming out here, and I guess you can't have 2 competing things screaming at each other. And it was just like everything just like canceled out, and like I felt like I could breathe. You know, now playing in Sharptooth, you know, I have this opportunity to get to talk about some of the darker parts of my experience, basically give back what bands like Every Time I Die gave to me, because they made me feel like I wasn't alone, even though they weren't like getting up there and really saying anything about mental health or about like trauma or anything like that. The fact that that music is so explosive taps into that. If I have something to say, I'm gonna say it. So I talk a lot on stage, and if people don't like it, they don't have to fucking watch. But I think it's important, especially as like one of the only women in metalcore and hardcore, to be using that platform as a way to make other people who might have been in other traumatic situations feel like they're not alone, or feel represented, or feel seen, or feel like they have a place where they can be safe and be themselves. It's about the activism that I'm trying to do as well, and connecting other, especially young people, with solutions or with community. And because, you know, I don't ever want some kid at a show to feel like they can't reach out and they can't ask for help. I don't ever want anyone to feel like as alone and as scared as I did for as long as I did. So, especially like on Warped Tour, it's been absolutely unbelievable getting to like, especially so many young women who clearly have this fire inside them and have this rage inside them that needs to come out. Having them say that they feel represented or that they relate to my story, because I get on stage and I talk about rape at every single show, and sometimes that really fucking sucks. You know, you don't want to getting up every day and be. You don't always want to get up and be like, sick. Can't wait to talk about being raped in front of thousands of strangers today. But it's like at that point, it's not even about me anymore. And I think I've gotten enough support and help in my trauma that like I owe it to people to get up there and do that. There's no way to explain it other than to just explain it all, because it's hard to really boil it down to any one particular experience. If anyone takes anything away from it, it's that this stuff can happen to literally anybody. You can come from the best family, you can come from money, it doesn't matter like where you come from. These things can happen to literally anybody. I just hope that other people can find solace in the music in the same way that I did, and find healing and like the courage to kind of rebuild and create our own best versions of ourselves to be able to put out into the world. Because I think that's what hardcore has done for me. If you're struggling with any of the issues that I've talked about, mental illness, sexual violence, even just having a tough time to, like, on any given day, you can post on forum.heartsupport.com and get some anonymous support for whatever you're going through.
Talk no shit.